Humanity had never expected to be the subject of a galactic conflict. Earth, still recovering from centuries of wars, had made it a priority to avoid alien entanglements. But all that changed the moment the Draxians arrived, a massive, technologically superior species with eyes set on conquest. The Draxians were known for enslaving lesser civilizations, and they had their sights set on Earth. The first warning came in the form of a broadcasted message from the Draxian fleet commander, who spoke in chilling tones from a ship orbiting Earth. "Surrender now, or your planet will be reduced to rubble," the voice resonated across every communication device on Earth. Governments around the world scrambled to respond, but they knew this wasn't a threat. They had the power to destroy entire cities with a single shot. For most of Earth's population, fear gripped their hearts. The idea of facing such an overwhelming force seemed impossible. But for those in power, a flicker of resistance sparked. High-ranking military officials and key leaders met in secret, discussing how they could resist. Earth's leaders had one option left: fight back. Among the resistance was Captain Alexis Storm, a decorated war hero known for her unyielding will and tactical genius. When the Draxians sent their first wave of invaders to the surface, they met the full force of Earth's military. Despite being outmatched technologically, humans fought with a desperation born of survival. Alexis led the charge, rallying troops with every ounce of her strength. They didn't just aim to hold their ground, they wanted to show the Draxians that humanity would never bend to their will. The first battle took place in the ruins of Paris. What should have been a swift invasion became a brutal firefight. Humans used guerrilla tactics, laying traps and sabotaging the invaders' advanced technology. The Draxians underestimated Earth's ingenuity, and for the first time, they were forced to retreat. It was a minor victory, but it sent a message: humans would not go down without a fight. But the Draxians were relentless. They launched a counteroffensive, doubling their forces. The Earth's resistance now had a real enemy to face. Yet, they were not intimidated. With every weapon at their disposal, humans began to learn quickly how to adapt to the Draxian technology. Alexis stormed into enemy lines, taking down their battle walkers with new human-made anti-armor missiles. As the battle raged on, the world stood united. The once divided nations now fought as one against a common enemy. In every corner of the globe, resistance cells began to form, and Earth's military leadership forged alliances with underground civilian groups. The humans, with their resourcefulness and indomitable spirit, began to turn the tide. It wasn't just the military, though. Across Earth, ordinary civilians became soldiers. From the fields of Africa to the cities of Asia, humanity fought back in every way they could. Engineers and scientists scrambled to reverse-engineer Draxian technology, while hackers infiltrated the alien communications network. Humanity had something the Draxians did not: a refusal to surrender, no matter the cost. For Captain Alexis Storm, this was just the beginning. In her mind, Earth had already won the first battle, now they needed to win the war. The Draxians had underestimated humanity, and that mistake would cost them dearly. What the invaders didn't realize was that their greatest weapon wasn't technology or size, it was their underestimation of the human spirit. And that, Alexis knew, would be their downfall. As the resistance gathered strength, the war began to take on a new dimension. It was no longer just a battle for survival, it was a fight for the future of humanity. Earth was no longer the helpless planet they had once been. Humanity would rise, and they would fight to the last man, woman, and child. The question now wasn't if humanity would survive, it was what they would do once they'd driven the Draxians from their world. The Draxians had made one critical mistake: they thought Earth's fight for survival would falter. What they hadn't accounted for was the resolve of a species that had clawed its way from the brink of extinction time and time again. Humans didn't just fight to survive, they fought to win. The first battle in Paris had been a spark that ignited the fire of global resistance. The world was united like never before. What had once been disparate nations with their own interests had become a single force standing firm against the alien invaders. The initial surge of hope was palpable. Human ingenuity, resourcefulness, and adaptability had proven to be powerful weapons, but they were just the beginning. As Earth's forces regrouped and reorganized, Captain Alexis Storm was appointed to lead a global military coalition. Her experience in battle, combined with her tactical brilliance, made her the perfect candidate to rally the world's scattered forces into a unified front. She was no longer just a leader in the field, she was a symbol of defiance, the face of humanity's unyielding resistance. While the humans celebrated their initial victory, they knew the war was far from over. The Draxians were regrouping, and they would not be as easily repelled the next time. But Earth's fighters weren't just preparing for the next battle, they were preparing for a revolution. Resistance cells in every country coordinated strikes on Draxian supply lines, sabotaged alien infrastructure, and gathered intelligence. Earth's engineers and scientists worked around the clock to reverse-engineer alien technology, taking apart Draxian weapons and ships and discovering weaknesses in their designs. The human ability to adapt and learn at an astonishing pace was becoming evident. Where the Draxians had expected humans to cower, they were now facing a revolution powered by sheer will and creativity. Captain Alexis Storm's command center had become a global hub, with representatives from every nation and every corner of society coming together to share knowledge and strategy. It was here that Alexis stood in front of a map, charting the next phase of the Resistance's plans. She was joined by engineers, military leaders, strategists, and even civilians who had taken up arms. "We'll hit them where it hurts," Alexis said, her voice calm but filled with determination. "We'll take out their supply depots, their command centers, their weapons manufacturing plants. We hit them hard, and we hit them fast. But we'll also make sure they know who we are. We'll make them remember the day humanity stood up for itself." The plan was bold and audacious. Earth's forces had limited resources, but what they lacked in numbers, they more than made up for in cunning. While the Draxians believed they controlled the battlefield, humanity had learned to exploit every advantage, every weakness in the enemy's armor, every blind spot in their tactics. They would fight with everything they had, and they would do it in ways the Draxians had never anticipated. To the Draxians, Earth was an insignificant backwater, a planet ripe for conquest. But to humanity, Earth was everything, their home, their legacy, their future. It was no longer just about survival. It was about taking back their world and ensuring no one would ever again threaten their way of life. The first major strike came when a team of human commandos infiltrated a Draxian supply depot in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. It was a high-risk mission, but the team succeeded in disabling critical systems and stealing valuable intelligence about the Draxian fleet's movements. This operation sent shockwaves through the invaders' ranks. The humans had struck them where they least expected it. Meanwhile, Captain Storm was busy with the most important mission of all, turning the tide of the war by finding the one weapon the Draxians feared more than anything: unity. While the alien forces had the upper hand in technology, they lacked the most powerful force in the universe, the unbreakable bond of a united people. Every victory, no matter how small, bolstered humanity's resolve. And with every act of defiance, Earth's warriors grew bolder, more fearless. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore, they were fighting for their dignity, their future, and the freedom of every living soul on Earth. As the resistance forces began to strike harder, faster, and with greater precision, the Draxians realized their mistake: Earth was not the easy conquest they had imagined. Humanity was far more dangerous than they had ever known, and they were just getting started. The war against the Draxians had escalated to a fever pitch. What began as isolated acts of defiance had evolved into full-scale resistance across the globe. Humans had proven themselves capable of fighting the most advanced civilization the galaxy had ever seen, but now the stakes were higher than ever. The Draxians had underestimated humanity's will to survive, and that was about to cost them dearly. Captain Alexis Storm knew the time had come to strike decisively. The Draxians, in their arrogance, had begun to make critical errors. They focused too much on Earth's capital cities and too little on the growing network of human resistance that spanned every continent. The humans had learned how to disrupt their systems, using tactics so unconventional that the Draxians couldn't adapt fast enough. The turning point came with a coordinated strike on one of the Draxian Empire's largest warships, a massive dreadnought that had been looming ominously above the Indian Ocean. It was one of the fleet's most powerful vessels, capable of launching devastating bombardments on Earth's major cities. But the humans had devised a plan. Instead of trying to fight the ship head-on, they would outsmart it. Using a mixture of underground tunnels, hidden bases, and stolen Draxian technology, Earth's resistance forces managed to infiltrate the ship from within. A team of elite commandos, led by Captain Storm herself, boarded the dreadnought, intent on planting explosives in its vital systems. They had one chance: failure meant death, and the loss of the warship would cripple Earth's chances of survival. The operation was dangerous. The Draxians had set up rigorous security measures, but the humans had anticipated this. They'd learned how to hack into the Draxian security networks, using their own technology against them. The team moved swiftly through the ship's corridors, disabling drones, avoiding patrols, and planting explosives at critical points. Every moment was a calculated risk, but humanity had proven time and time again that they could do the impossible. As the team planted the final charges, Captain Storm's voice crackled over the comms: "Mission accomplished. Get to the escape pods, now!" But just as the team made their way to the ship's escape pods, a siren blared. The Draxians had discovered the breach. The crew was alerted, and the entire ship went into lockdown. The escape pods were the only way out, but they were now under heavy fire. The human commandos had to fight their way through waves of alien soldiers just to survive. Captain Storm led the charge, cutting through Draxian forces with relentless precision. But even as they reached the escape pods, the ship began to shake violently. The explosives had done their job. The dreadnought was tearing apart from the inside. "We're not out of this yet," Storm said, her voice sharp with determination. With only seconds to spare, the human team launched the escape pods, narrowly escaping the explosion as the Draxian warship was obliterated in a massive fireball. The explosion was visible from miles away, a symbol of humanity's growing defiance. The loss of the dreadnought was a crushing blow to the Draxian fleet, but it was also more than that: it was a statement. Earth had learned to strike with precision, to exploit the Draxians' greatest weaknesses. The humans weren't just surviving, they were becoming a force to be reckoned with. This victory would go down in history as the moment when Earth's warriors first truly began to turn the tide of the war. As the smoke cleared and the survivors of the mission returned to Earth, Captain Alexis Storm addressed the united forces in a broadcast that would inspire generations to come. "This victory isn't just ours, it's everyone's," she said. "We've shown them what happens when you try to enslave humanity. We've shown them that we are not just a planet to be conquered. We are a force that will fight to the last breath, and we will not stop until we are free." The message was simple, but powerful. The war was far from over, but humanity had made it clear that they would never submit to alien overlords. They had taken the first true step toward victory, and they wouldn't stop until the Draxians were gone from their world forever. The destruction of the Draxian dreadnought had sent shockwaves through the alien empire. It was a humiliating loss, and though it was a victory for Earth, it was only a small fraction of the war yet to be won. The Draxians, wounded but far from defeated, regrouped and began a new offensive, this time targeting Earth's vital military infrastructure and communication networks. But the humans had already anticipated the next move. They knew the Draxians would retaliate with overwhelming force. And so, Earth's leaders, led by Captain Alexis Storm, formulated a daring new plan. If they were to win this war, they needed to hit the Draxians where it hurt the most, at the very heart of their empire. While Earth's forces had been focused on defense, Alexis and her team turned their attention outward, toward the Draxian homeworld itself. Intelligence gathered from infiltrated ships and stolen technology revealed that the Draxians had a hidden stronghold deep within their core territories. A facility so secure that it was thought to be impenetrable. But Earth's resistance had already proven that nothing was beyond their reach. The mission was simple in concept but nearly impossible in execution: infiltrate the Draxian homeworld, destroy their primary command center, and cripple their ability to coordinate the war effort. To make matters worse, the Draxians had fortified their planet with an impenetrable defense grid, capable of detecting and obliterating any unauthorized ships attempting to approach. Undeterred, Captain Storm and her team worked relentlessly, developing a plan to bypass the Draxian defenses. A specialized stealth ship, an experimental vessel designed to slip through detection systems, was constructed, a cutting-edge combination of human and repurposed Draxian technology. It would be humanity's best chance to infiltrate the heart of the enemy's operations. The mission would be a one-way trip. If they succeeded, they would deal a devastating blow to the Draxian war effort. If they failed, Earth would lose its best hope for ending the conflict. But Alexis had never been one to back down from impossible odds. The night before the mission was set to launch, Alexis stood alone in the war room, her fingers tracing the holographic map of the Draxian homeworld. The risks were immense. Even with their stealth ship, there was no guarantee they could make it past the enemy's defenses. But the fate of Earth rested on their success. She wasn't about to let her people down. "I'm not afraid to die," she said quietly to herself. "But I'll be damned if I let them win." With that resolve in her heart, Alexis gathered her team, and they boarded the stealth vessel, their mission clear. Their ship was small, compact, and designed for maximum speed and stealth. It would be their ticket to slipping past the Draxian fleet unnoticed. But it wasn't the ship that would determine their success. It was their courage, their unrelenting drive to free humanity from tyranny. As the vessel shot into space, Earth's military forces provided a diversion, drawing Draxian attention away from the stealth ship. The humans had become experts in misdirection, using decoys and feints to confuse the enemy's tracking systems. Alexis and her crew moved silently through space, evading the Draxian warships, their vessel practically invisible on all Draxian sensors. They crossed light years in what seemed like mere hours, thanks to the ship's advanced technology. The Draxian homeworld loomed large on their sensors, a massive, war-torn planet, its surface dotted with sprawling military complexes and heavily fortified cities. The Resistance's target was located deep within one of the most secure locations on the planet, the Draxian Emperor's central command hub. The infiltration was tense, every moment fraught with peril. As they entered the planet's atmosphere, a sudden alarm blared. A Draxian patrol ship had detected their presence. It was a race against time. The stealth ship's cloaking systems barely held up as it dipped lower into the atmosphere. Their ship was small, and its engines were low-powered, making it difficult to evade the massive, faster Draxian ships. "Activate countermeasures," Alexis ordered. The crew worked in unison, deploying decoy flares and scrambling their signal frequencies to confuse the Draxian patrol. But the enemy wasn't fooled for long. The pursuit was closing in. The stealth ship was forced to make an emergency landing outside the Draxian command center. The team had no choice now. They would have to fight their way through the heart of the enemy's fortress. The crew donned their combat gear, ready for the fight of their lives. But despite the odds, Alexis stood tall, her resolve unshaken. They were in the heart of the Draxian Empire now, and they weren't going to leave without securing humanity's victory. The Draxian fortress was a monolithic structure that seemed to pierce the sky itself. It was a symbol of their imperial might, an impenetrable fortress that housed the very core of their military and intelligence operations. Captain Alexis Storm and her team had infiltrated the heart of their enemy's stronghold, but the real battle was just beginning. As the stealth ship landed, the team scrambled to gather their gear, adrenaline surging through their veins. The air was thick with the weight of what they were about to do: breach the Draxian command center and dismantle the very system that had enslaved Earth. But they knew this mission would come at a cost. Not all of them would make it out alive. Alexis turned to her team, locking eyes with each of them. "This is it," she said, her voice calm but carrying an undeniable weight. "We strike fast, we strike hard, and we make sure they never forget who we are. Let's show them the true power of humanity." The team moved swiftly, their training taking over as they navigated the heavily guarded corridors of the Draxian fortress. Their mission was clear: infiltrate the command center, plant explosives on the central data core, and disable the Draxian war machine. But the complex was crawling with Draxian soldiers, and every turn held a new danger. They fought their way through the first few levels, using stolen Draxian weapons to neutralize enemy patrols. The humans were relentless, their movements coordinated with precision. They were soldiers on a mission, no alien invader would stop them now. But as they reached the inner sanctum of the fortress, the true scale of the Draxian Empire's power became apparent. The command center was a sprawling nerve center, with massive banks of computers and alien technology that hummed with energy. At the center stood the Draxian Emperor's personal command throne, a symbol of absolute authority over an entire galaxy. It was guarded by the most elite forces the Draxians had to offer, and as Alexis and her team entered the chamber, they were met with a hail of gunfire. "Take cover!" Alexis shouted, diving behind a column. Her team scattered, returning fire with deadly accuracy. The sound of blaster fire echoed throughout the chamber as the humans fought desperately against overwhelming odds. But the Draxians had made one fatal mistake: they underestimated the human spirit. Alexis and her team fought with a ferocity that the Draxians had never seen. Each shot, each strike, was calculated, each move driven by an unyielding desire for freedom. They had nothing to lose, and everything to gain. "Get to the core!" Alexis barked as she fired at a group of Draxian soldiers advancing toward them. Her team pushed forward, making their way through the labyrinth of alien technology. The countdown had already begun, and they couldn't afford to waste any more time. They had to destroy the heart of the Draxian Empire, or all their sacrifices would have been in vain. They finally reached the central data core, a massive structure at the center of the command center. It was surrounded by heavy security, but the humans were ready. They planted the explosives with expert precision, ensuring that the core would be destroyed in a massive burst of energy that would cripple the Draxians' ability to communicate and coordinate their forces. But as they prepared to leave, the worst possible scenario unfolded. The Draxian Emperor, a towering, imposing figure, appeared on a massive screen. His face, cold and imperious, stared down at them. He spoke in a language that none of the humans could understand, but the message was clear: he had anticipated this attack. "You are nothing," the Emperor's voice boomed, his words filled with contempt. "You are a small, insignificant species, and you will not win. Your resistance is nothing but a fleeting moment in the history of the universe. You cannot fight us. You cannot defeat us." The Emperor's image flickered, then was replaced by a countdown clock, showing a mere minute before the entire fortress would be wiped from existence, along with the humans trapped inside. Alexis' heart raced, but she didn't falter. "We'll make sure your last moment is one of defeat," she muttered under her breath. With a fierce look in her eyes, she turned to her team. "Move, now!" They made a desperate dash toward the exit, fighting through more Draxian forces as they went. But the Draxians were closing in, and the countdown was almost at zero. They were running out of time. As they reached the outer perimeter of the fortress, Alexis was the last to jump into the extraction shuttle. The blast doors slammed shut behind her, and the ship rocketed into the sky just as the fortress erupted in a fiery explosion. The shockwave rattled their ship, but they managed to break through the atmosphere and escape. The explosion was visible for miles, a massive, brilliant burst of light that obliterated the Draxian command center. It was a victory that would be remembered throughout history. The Draxians had lost their central hub of operations, their ability to command the war effort shattered in an instant. As they left the Draxian homeworld behind, Alexis couldn't help but think about the cost. Many had fallen, and countless more would die in the coming battles. But one thing was clear: humanity had struck at the heart of their oppressors, and the war was far from over. The Draxians had made their greatest mistake: they had underestimated the power of a species that refused to be enslaved. The explosion that obliterated the Draxian command center had sent shockwaves across the galaxy. It wasn't just a victory for Earth, it was a statement to every empire that thought they could dominate humanity. Captain Alexis Storm and her team had dealt a crippling blow to the Draxian war effort, and though their mission was a success, the path to ultimate victory was far from clear. The Draxians, rattled but not broken, had rallied their forces in a frenzy. Their response was swift and brutal, launching a series of retaliatory strikes that tore through Earth's outer defenses. Despite their advanced weaponry and superior numbers, the Draxians were beginning to realize that humanity was not going to fold under pressure. The tides of war were shifting, but the scale of the battle was about to escalate. Back on Earth, Alexis had returned to the front lines, rallying Earth's remaining forces. They had won a decisive victory, but they still had no idea what the full extent of the Draxian retaliation would be. In the days following the destruction of their command center, the Draxians unleashed their most devastating weapon, a planet killer that could wipe out entire populations with a single strike. Humanity's only hope was to stop it before it could be deployed. Alexis convened with her top commanders, the survivors of the mission. Their faces were marked by exhaustion and grief, but their resolve remained as unyielding as ever. They had struck the Draxians where it hurt the most, but they knew the enemy wouldn't stop until humanity was crushed. This war was no longer about resistance, it was about survival. The Draxians will hit us hard, but they don't know what we're capable of yet, Alexis said, her voice cutting through the tension in the war room. We've proven we can outthink them, outfight them, and outlast them. But this next move, it's going to take everything we have. The plan was ambitious, a desperate gamble. Earth's forces would launch a series of diversionary strikes against Draxian outposts on the outer rim of the galaxy, drawing their attention away from their most valuable asset, the planet killer. Meanwhile, a small, specialized team would infiltrate the Draxian flagship, where the planet killer's launch controls were stored, and disable the weapon. Time was critical. Intelligence from captured Draxian vessels suggested that the planet killer was on the brink of being deployed. Earth's last hope was to prevent it from ever being used. Alexis and her team knew they had no choice but to act fast. They boarded a stealth ship once again, outfitted with the latest upgrades. Their mission was a do-or-die operation, one that carried an immense risk. The Draxian flagship, a colossal battle cruiser, was heavily guarded and surrounded by an armada of warships. But the humans had one advantage: they knew their enemies' weaknesses, and they had learned to exploit them. The mission began with an audacious strike against one of the Draxian outer colonies. A sudden, overwhelming attack caught the Draxian fleet off guard, sending their forces into disarray. It was the perfect diversion. While the enemy scrambled to respond, the stealth ship carrying Alexis and her elite team slipped undetected toward the Draxian flagship. They breached the flagship's outer defenses with ease, a testament to humanity's growing expertise in guerrilla warfare. But the closer they got to their target, the greater the danger. The flagship's interior was a labyrinth of corridors, each one bristling with armed Draxian soldiers. To make matters worse, the ship's internal security system was so sophisticated that even a small breach would alert the entire fleet. "Stay sharp. We're in their backyard now," Alexis whispered into her comms. "We do this clean, we do this fast." With synchronized precision, the team made their way through the ship's hulls, dispatching enemy forces with ruthless efficiency. They had learned not only how to fight but how to strike with surgical precision. The planet killer's launch controls were located in the ship's heavily fortified command center, and reaching it would be no easy task. But every second counted, and Alexis knew that failure wasn't an option. The team fought their way past waves of Draxian soldiers, utilizing the element of surprise at every turn. The ship's security was tightening, but they were too close now. They could feel the weight of the planet killer's impending launch bearing down on them. Finally, they reached the control room, only to find that the Draxian Emperor was there, waiting for them. His massive frame loomed over the control panel, and he turned to face them with an air of disdain. "You humans are persistent," he sneered, his voice cold and mocking. "But you cannot win. You cannot defeat the Draxian Empire. The galaxy is mine." Alexis didn't flinch. "Not today, Emperor." With a single command, her team launched a series of tactical explosives, disabling the ship's power grid. The Emperor's expression faltered for just a moment, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. But it was too late. The countdown for the planet killer had been stopped, and the weapon's launch systems were now offline. The Emperor roared in fury, but his words fell on deaf ears. The humans had won again. The planet killer was no longer a threat to Earth, and the Draxian Empire's stranglehold on the galaxy had been shattered. As Alexis and her team made their escape, the flagship exploded behind them, a massive fireball that signified not just the fall of the Draxian weapon, but the beginning of the end for their empire. The humans had defied the odds once more, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The destruction of the Draxian flagship sent ripples across the galaxy, signaling the irreversible collapse of their empire. With the planet killer disabled and their most powerful warship reduced to cosmic rubble, the Draxians were reeling, their once mighty forces now scattered and broken. Earth had dealt the final blow, but the cost had been high. Captain Alexis Storm stood aboard Earth's newly re-established command ship, gazing out the viewing window at the stars. The galaxy, once so full of danger and uncertainty, now seemed vast and full of possibility. But even with the Draxian Empire in ruins, the remnants of their forces were still scattered throughout the galaxy, and the work of rebuilding would be long and hard. The war wasn't entirely over, but humanity had finally reclaimed its future. "We did it," a voice said from behind her. It was Lieutenant Maya Hernandez, one of Alexis' most trusted officers. "We've done what they said was impossible." Alexis nodded, though her face remained hard with the weight of the decisions made. "We've won, but victory comes with a price. We've lost good people, brave people, along the way. And we still have to finish what we started." Despite the heavy toll, the future of humanity had never looked brighter. With the fall of the Draxian Empire, countless systems once under their cruel rule were freed. Rebel factions from all corners of the galaxy, who had been oppressed under the Draxian boot, flocked to Earth, offering alliances and resources in exchange for support. Humanity had become the symbol of resistance, of hope, and of freedom. But Alexis knew the true work was just beginning. The galaxy would need to be rebuilt, and Earth would need to become a leader among the stars. The war against the Draxians had united humanity in ways never thought possible. Now, they would have to learn how to coexist with other civilizations, some of which were still distrustful of the newly empowered Earth. "We're not just fighting for our survival anymore," Alexis said, turning to Maya. "We're fighting to shape the future. We've proved we can fight, but now we need to show that we can lead, that we can build a new order that's better than what came before." The United Earth Coalition had already begun setting up diplomatic channels with former enemies and allies alike. The galaxy was in chaos, and there were still pockets of Draxian forces to deal with, but humanity had proven that they would no longer be subjugated. They would be the ones in charge of their own destiny, and they would never again bow to any empire, no matter how powerful. As Alexis made her way to the bridge, her crew greeted her with the respect of warriors who had fought side by side to ensure that Earth's survival wasn't just a dream, it was a reality. They had all been part of something far greater than themselves, a turning point in the history of the galaxy. But even as celebrations began, Alexis couldn't shake the feeling that something larger was at play, something even more dangerous than the Draxian Empire. The Draxians had been the first threat to humanity's independence, but they wouldn't be the last. There were other empires, other species watching Earth's rise with fear and envy. She turned to Lieutenant Hernandez. "We've made history, but the future is still uncertain. We need to remain vigilant. Earth's strength isn't just in our military, it's in our unity. We must ensure that no one can divide us, no matter the cost." Maya nodded in agreement. "The galaxy won't forget what we've done here. We'll rebuild, we'll forge new alliances, and we'll make sure that no one ever dares to enslave us again." As the ship's engines roared to life, Alexis gazed out at the stars once more. The war had changed everything, but it had also revealed the true strength of humanity. They had been pushed to the brink, forced to fight for their survival, and in doing so, they had proven that they would never be crushed, never be broken. For humanity, the future was now theirs to shape. They had come from the brink of extinction to the cusp of galactic leadership. And as the ship soared toward the unknown, Alexis Storm could feel a new chapter beginning, one written by humans, for humans, in a universe that would never again underestimate them. The age of humanity had arrived.